The night I heard my daughter's true feelings was the night my heart cracked like dry wood. She forgot to end the call, and her voice carried through, cold and sharp. "It's time for him to move into a nursing home," she said. My son-in-law agreed, calling me a burden. I sat frozen, gripping the phone like it was fire. That word, burden, stabbed deeper than any knife. In that moment, I knew my life was about to change forever. Before we go deeper, where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more. My friends, the pain of hearing your own child plan your exile is heavier than a sack of wet sand. They even spoke of selling my house, whispering about money as if I was already gone. My chest burned while their laughter echoed through the line. I wanted to scream, but instead I sat in silence, feeling something hard replace the love in me. I walked around the house that night like a stranger, seeing it not as a home but as a treasure chest they had already counted. Every wall carried my sweat, every corner Kate and I had built with our bare hands. Memories poured into me. The first steps of my daughter, the family dinners, the laughter of long years. Yet now, in their eyes, all of it was nothing but dollars. My fists clenched as I whispered to myself, "I am not finished yet." The next morning, I pulled out an old folder Kate had insisted I keep. Inside were receipts from long ago. University fees, wedding bills, car repairs. Each paper carried proof of how I broke my back to give my daughter a better life. I remembered Kate's warning years ago. Don't give her so much she forgets to be grateful. And here I was, watching those words come alive like a prophecy. They had forgotten everything, but I had not forgotten who I was. I found the house deed tucked safely in our bedroom drawer, my name standing firm as the sole owner. That paper reminded me that no matter what they plotted, I still held the power. My daughter and her husband believed I was weak, confused, easy to push aside. But inside me, fire was building, the kind that comes when a man is cornered and betrayed. I looked at Kate's photo on the nightstand and whispered, "My love, they will learn today who I truly am." I walked through the living room slowly, my eyes tracing every piece of furniture Kate and I had saved for, bought, and built together. The sofa where my daughter once curled up with her homework, the table I had crafted with my own hands, the bay window Kate had loved so dearly. To them it was just property. To me it was memory, sweat, and sacrifice. I clenched my teeth. If they wanted to play games with my life, I was ready for war. I remembered the nights Kate and I stayed up late talking about our dreams. She always reminded me not to trust blindly, not to give everything away. But I had ignored her caution, blinded by the smile of my daughter. Now here I stood, holding proof of her betrayal. The wedding bills, the car loans, the tuition payments, every cent I had poured into her life. And yet, she was ready to throw me aside like old clothes. My blood boiled like fire. That evening, I sat alone in Kate's old recliner, the leather still carrying the faint smell of her perfume. I stared at her photo and felt her eyes on me, not of comfort but of warning. "Don't let them take what we built," her voice echoed in my head. My fingers curled around the edges of the house deed, sharp and steady. They thought I was helpless. They thought they could strip me of dignity. But this old man had more fight left. I reached into the desk drawer and pulled out a card I had kept for years. Todd, a real estate lawyer Kate once insisted we meet. His number staring at me like fate itself. My daughter and her husband believed they could corner me into submission, but they had no idea I had weapons of my own. I dialed slowly, my heart pounding. "Mr. Todd, it's me," I said. "I need to talk about something urgent, about family and about betrayal." The next morning, I dressed carefully in the dark blue suit Kate had picked for my daughter's graduation. My hands trembled only slightly as I walked into Todd's office. He welcomed me like an old friend, his kind eyes soft with understanding. "Tell me everything," he said. And so I did. The overheard call, the betrayal, their cruel laughter. When I finished, he leaned back and nodded slowly. "Sir, your house is yours alone. They cannot touch it without your consent." Relief washed over me. Todd's words were like cool water on a burning wound. "They cannot sell your house, they cannot force you, they cannot decide for you. he repeated. My chest loosened, but only for a moment. Anger replaced relief, burning hotter than before. If I wanted, Todd said, I could sell the house myself within days. That thought planted a seed in me. Perhaps the best way to teach them was not by shouting but by action. I left his office with a plan. As I drove home, my daughter's voice replayed in my head. Her laughter when she called me grateful, her joy in planning my exile. My knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. They think I am weak, I muttered. But they will see. The house looked different as I parked. No longer just walls and memories, it had become my shield and my weapon. Kate's words whispered through my heart. Never let them take what we bled for. My jaw set hard. War had begun. That night the phone rang. Her voice sparkled with fake sweetness, as though nothing had happened. Dad, how are you? She asked. I forced my own warmth, playing the game. I'm well, my dear. How's your trip? She spoke of dinners and meetings, but then slipped in the real plan. We found a beautiful place for you, she said. Like a resort with medical staff. My throat tightened, but I smiled through my words. Wonderful. I also have a surprise for you. She giggled, believing I was easy to manipulate. Oh, Daddy, you're the sweetest, she said. If only she knew. As I hung up, I stared at Kate's photo on the nightstand. They think I'm sweet, I whispered, but they are about to taste bitter. That night I searched for real estate agents, scrolling through names until one stood out. Brian, known for fast deals. Called him immediately. How fast can a house sell? Yes. His reply came strong. 10 days, sir. The following afternoon, Brian stood at my door. His eyes widening as he walked through. This house is flawless, he whispered, inspecting the wood floors I had laid by hand, the bay window Kate had dreamed of. His admiration was genuine. Sir, I can sell this for $900,000 or more, he said confidently. My heart raced. More than what my daughter and her husband had whispered about. Then let us sell, I said, my voice steady as stone. Brian smiled like a man who had found treasure. He called investors on the spot, praising the home I had built with sweat and sacrifice. Within hours he had offers. I signed the papers with hands no longer trembling. The number burned in my mind. $890,000 in cash. I imagined their faces when they discovered their burden had turned his life's work into freedom. That night I poured a glass of Kate's favorite wine and whispered to her memory. Justice is coming. The process moved faster than I dreamed. Inspectors came, praising the workmanship. Your father really knew what he was doing, one told me, assuming I was gone already. I smiled quietly. Day by day the sale became reality. My daughter called often, her voice sugar-coated with lies. I answered warmly, but each time I hung up I laughed inside. They thought they were fooling me. They thought they had already won. Little did they know I was writing the final chapter. On the day of closing, I dressed in the navy suit Kate had chosen long ago. The office was bright, papers neatly arranged. I signed document after document, each signature cutting a chain that had bound me to betrayal. When the banker handed me confirmation, I stared at the numbers. $890,000. My knees almost buckled. More than money, it was power. It was freedom. It was justice. For the first time in years I felt strong again. I walked out taller than before. But I wasn't finished. I drove straight to a locksmith, paying cash for new locks. The man worked quickly, replacing every door. He handed me 3 new keys. They clicked differently, sharp and final. Felt no guilt. I had been too generous, too forgiving. That chapter was over. I packed a suitcase with Kate's jewelry box, our wedding photos, and her favorite cookbook. The rest I left behind. This house was no longer my prison. It had become their lesson. I rented a small apartment that evening, plain but peaceful. The manager handed me keys with a smile, never asking questions. For the first time I carried my life in a single suitcase. My phone buzzed, my daughter's name glowing on the screen. I ignored it, letting her wonder. Tomorrow she would return, expecting to find her burden waiting. Instead, she would find locks that no longer turned, and a letter waiting at the door. My lips curled. The trap was set. That night, I sat in my new apartment, staring at Kate's photo on the nightstand. "My love, forgive me," I whispered. "But this is the only way." I opened my laptop and ordered a small hidden camera, one that looked like a phone charger. If they wanted to see me as weak, then let me record their shock. I wrote the letter 3 times before it felt right. Firm but calm, filled with truth, filled with pain. Tomorrow I would place it on the door. Thursday afternoon, I slipped back into the house one last time. The walls carried the familiar smell of lemon polish and Kate's lavender sachets. I taped the envelope to the front door at eye level, where they couldn't miss it. I placed the small camera neatly by the entryway outlet, pointing straight at the door. My phone showed a perfect angle, the locks, the letter, their every reaction. "It's done," I whispered, pressing my hand against the mantel where Kate's photo had once sat. Back in my apartment, I tested the live feed on my phone. The camera caught every corner, every shadow near the door. My heart beat like a drum, not from fear but from anticipation. Tomorrow they would return from their trip, confident, greedy, ready to erase me. Instead, they would meet the truth written in my own careful handwriting. I set the phone beside me, poured a cup of coffee, and waited for dawn with a strange smile on my face. Friday afternoon, the motion alert buzzed. My heart leapt. I opened the feed and there they were. My daughter and her husband, stepping out of their car with smug faces. She reached for the front door, slid her key in and frowned. The lock wouldn't turn. She tried again, jiggling, muttering. His face darkened as he tested the back door. Then the garage. Nothing worked. Their comm cracked. "Jeremy, something's wrong," she said, her voice rising. He scowled. "These are new locks." They argued quietly at first, panic slowly spreading. "Call Dad," she snapped, fumbling with her phone. I almost laughed when she dialed the old landline, now disconnected. She tried again, her face twisting when no voicemail came. "He doesn't even own a cell phone," she cried. Jeremy shoved his hands in his pockets, pacing like a caged animal. At last, she climbed through the window I had left unlatched. When she opened the front door from inside, she froze at the letter. Her hand trembled as she tore the envelope open. I leaned forward, my breath caught. Her eyes moved across my words. My truth, my anger, my farewell. Jeremy read over her shoulder, his jaw tightening with each line. "He sold the house," she whispered, her voice breaking. $890,000. The shock painted her face pale. Jeremy cursed, grabbing the paper, reading it twice, as if the ink might rewrite itself. But it did not. The words were final. My daughter's tears flowed, her cries filling the room I once called mine. "How could he do this to us?" she sobbed, her hands shaking. Jeremy's mask slipped. His voice dripped with venom. "He was smarter than you thought. You should have handled him better." Her head snapped up, anger flashing. "Me. You're the one who pushed for the nursing home. You're the one who wanted his money." Their voices rose, clawing at each other, blame bouncing like arrows in battle. The irony struck me deep. They had plotted to put me away, to take my home and wealth, yet now they stood homeless themselves. Their secrets spilled out like poison. "I lost my job 6 months ago." Jeremy snapped. "Your father was supposed to save us." My daughter stared in shock. "You lied to me," she screamed. Their marriage cracked open before my very eyes. All their greed, all their betrayal, it was now devouring them from the inside out. I turned off the camera feed, satisfied. Their pain was loud enough without me watching. I poured myself a glass of Kate's favorite wine, saved for a day of victory. Raising it toward her photo, I whispered, "My love, they thought I was weak, but today justice lives." The taste filled my mouth like triumph. Somewhere my daughter and her husband sat among empty dreams. And here I sat, free, holding the power they thought they had stolen. My burden was gone. I stepped outside my new apartment that evening, watching the sun sink low, painting the sky in gold and crimson. The air smelled different here, free of betrayal. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Surely my daughter trying to reach me. I deleted it without hesitation. Some lessons are best learned through silence. I smiled, breathing deep. For the first time since Kate's passing, I felt light, untied, alive. My story was not ending. It was beginning anew on my own terms. The next morning I woke early, my heart steady, my spirit calm. I brewed coffee in my small apartment, the smell filling the air. For the first time in years, I wasn't cooking for anyone else, just myself. I carried my cup to the window and smiled at the rising sun. My daughter once thought I was chained to her decisions. Now she was chained to the consequences of her greed. Freedom, I realized, was not in the house but in my choice. I visited the bank that day, sitting with the manager who greeted me warmly. My account showed the full $890,000, untouched, secure. The figures glowed on the screen, brighter than gold. "Would you like to open an investment plan?" he asked kindly. I chuckled softly. "For now, I'd just like to breathe." He nodded, understanding. Money was not my victory. It was the fact that I had claimed my dignity back. I walked out with my head high, feeling younger than my years. Later, I returned to my old neighborhood for one last look. Mrs. Johnson next door waved from her garden, confusion on her face as she saw me drive past. I didn't stop. Some goodbyes are better left unspoken. The house stood tall, waiting for its new owners, no longer mine. My daughter and her husband would come again, searching, scheming, but the keys would never fit. I drove away slowly, the rearview mirror showing me a past I no longer carried. My phone buzzed again that evening. Message after message, desperate words from my daughter. I read none of them. She had chosen her path the day she called me a burden. She thought love was money, that family was business. I had given her everything, yet it was never enough. Now she would learn that greed always destroys itself. I powered off the phone, set it aside, and lifted Kate's photo from the nightstand. "Rest, my love," I whispered. "We are free now." Days turned into a quiet rhythm. I discovered a small cafe down the street where the owner, a kind woman named Ruth, served tea and listened without asking too many questions. "You're new here," she smiled. He nodded. "Just starting over." Her words were gentle. Sometimes leaving behind what hurts us is the only way to heal. I left her cafe that day with lighter steps, realizing not all people wanted to take. Some people, like Kate once was, only gave. One afternoon I sat in the park, watching children chase each other, their laughter ringing like bells. My chest ached, not with pain but with memory. I remembered Kate's joy whenever she saw children play, how she'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "This is life." For the first time I allowed myself to cry. Not for betrayal, but for love that once filled my home. Tears rolled freely, washing away the bitterness. I felt Kate's presence near, telling me I had done well. By the end of that week, word had spread. A friend called saying, "Your daughter is furious, Daniel. She's telling everyone you betrayed her." I laughed, not in anger but in peace. Her talk. Let her scream. The truth was written on paper in her own voice, her own betrayal. I owed no one an explanation. My story was not theirs to twist anymore. I closed my door gently that night and whispered, "The man they thought weak has risen." I began to write in a notebook, page after page of memories. Not of anger, but of the journey Kate and I had built together. Our struggles, our sacrifices, the love that carried us through storms. Someday I wanted those words to be read, not by the greedy, but by those who understand the weight of loyalty and the price of betrayal. Each word felt like laying another brick in the new home I was building within myself. Strong, steady, untouchable. On Sunday, I walked to the community center and joined a group of elders playing chess. They welcomed me warmly, no questions about the past, only laughter and conversation. I realized then that life had not ended when I lost my home. It had begun again. Betrayal had been the fire, but out of that fire, I had forged something greater, freedom. I lifted my eyes to the heavens and whispered, Kate, you were right. I gave too much, but now I've learned. And so my story ends here, my friends. A daughter once called her father a burden, but the father showed her that burdens can rise, fight, and win. I lost a house, but I gained my dignity. I lost family, but I found peace. If you have ever been betrayed, remember this. You are stronger than they think. You carry the power to choose, to rise, and to walk away. My name is Daniel, and I am no one's burden anymore.